And we can get down to business. We're privileged to have him with us, the mayor of New Rochelle. He and some of the other members of his staff have done a wonderful job, I think, in planning the future out for New Rochelle. And I'm thought of two quotes that I found for tonight. More is required of public officials than slogans, handshakes, and press releases. This was said by the great Barbara Jordan, former Congresswoman. We must hold ourselves strictly accountable. We must provide the people with a vision of the future. That's what she thought that a public official should do. Benjamin Franklin famously noted that without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. It is with these optimistic themes in mind, a vision for the future, growth, and progress for our city, that I introduce the Mayor of New Rochelle, the Honorable Noah Bramson. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Some things change year to year. We are in a new setting, and thank you, Beckwith Point, for hosting us today. I have a new pair of shoes because my mother was horrified by my last pair of shoes and is probably equally horrified by my mentioning it tonight. And yes, that does appear to be the case. I love you, Mom. And of course, because of my rapidly deteriorating eyesight, the font size of my written text is now up to 20. So that is also another change. But there is at least one thing that stays the same year to year, and that is the gratitude that all of us should feel to Bob Marone and Frank Michelli and Jennifer Lancer and the entire Chamber of Commerce for the hard work of bringing us together. Please, let's give them a big round of applause. So, members of the City Council, City Manager Strome, and colleagues in government, especially Finance Commissioner Howard Ratner, who is retiring this year after 23 years of able service, to the community leaders, partners, neighbors, and friends who are present, and to those watching at home. Good evening. As we meet tonight, New Rochelle has the fourth lowest tax rate in the entire state, our highest fund balance in 8 years, our lowest violent crime rate in 16 years, our smallest municipal debt in 25 years, our fewest burglaries in 55 years, and our best bond rating since FDR was in the White House. Not bad. Not bad. In 2015, businesses in New Rochelle sold more goods and services than ever before in our history. And in 2016, we're on track to break that record all over again. Sure, you can applaud the businesses in New Rochelle. Last year, more than 600 families bought a home in New Rochelle. Hundreds more rented, choosing our community as the place to set down roots, raise a family, or retire among friends. Even Mother Nature is doing her part. Since last winter, snowfall is down 73%. By the way, I just completely made up that number. But it sounds about right, doesn't it? So, in case there is any suspense about the punchline of this speech, let me get right to it. The state of our city is strong. And I haven't even gotten to the good part yet. We're going to make our city even stronger. Last December, a unanimous bipartisan council approved the most ambitious downtown development plan in the entire Hudson Valley. The potential for up to 1 million square feet of new retail, more than 2 million square feet of new office, 5,500 new apartments, hundreds of new hotel rooms. It's not the numbers that count, it's what they add up to. A thriving city center where all of us can find a place to shop, a place to work, a place to meet, or a place to live. sustainable growth for a region that's greener and healthier, financial terms that put taxpayers ahead with annual revenue as high as $70 million, and a message to the world, loud and clear: New Rochelle is open for business. And make no mistake, this plan will not gather dust on a shelf. We'll achieve our vision through a unique development framework that takes full advantage of all New Rochelle has to offer, and that gives New Rochelle an unprecedented competitive edge, unprecedented confidence. Our master developers at RDRXR now have an exclusive on multiple public properties and therefore a special stake in the success of our downtown. Their own projects will have enormous catalytic value, but it's more than that, because when a strong, well-capitalized partner places big bets on a place, it says to the rest of the business community, you won't be alone. This is the time to get in. New Rochelle is on the rise. Unprecedented flexibility. Flexibility. In fact, the most flexible new zoning code in all of Westchester. It's something called a form-based code, which means instead of dictating this use for this site or that use for that site, it allows just about any use on every site. That matters, because a vision that doesn't match the market is kind of like a Ferrari without a gas tank. It looks nice, but it's not going anywhere. By contrast, when builders can respond quickly to shifting market demands, that's when shovels go in the ground. And unprecedented efficiency and predictability, with an approval process that sweeps away barriers to success. Usually, the state's environmental review regulations entail months, if not years, of expense and uncertainty. And that can scare lots of people off. Not here in New Rochelle. We've already completed the environmental impact statement. It's approved for the whole zone. Essentially, that means no dragged-out delays, no costly reports, no last-minute legal obstacles. Any project consistent with the city's vision gets that monopoly card. Advance to go. So there has never been a clearer path to doing business successfully in New Rochelle. And that's a profoundly important change. But there's also another side to this, just as important. Because while a good investment climate is necessary, it's not sufficient. Our end goal isn't a healthier rate of return for developers. That's just a means. Our end goal is a healthier city. So this clear path for builders is also a smart path for the rest of us. The same zoning code that offers all that flexibility on use contains our highest standards ever for design. A continuous active street front, no more blank walls or empty spaces, upper-level setbacks tailored to the width of each road, and special attention to the features that make a city beautiful and exciting: corners, vistas, and the crowns of a rising skyline. Every project has to exemplify the best planning principles and enhance the downtown as a whole. We've created a fair share mitigation fund that, for the first time, requires developers to contribute to the infrastructure and capital needs that come with growth, including the construction of classrooms or schools. For residents who need pathways to a first career or a new career, we're creating a job training program that offers opportunities in construction and beyond. And for residents who need a decent place to live on a working family's budget, we're insisting that 10% of new apartments be affordable, with incentives for even more. And there are incentives, too, for lots of other public goods through our new height bonuses. To build a little taller and get all the income that comes with those great views, it's simple. Give us something back that matters to our community. Preserve a historic structure, or show us cutting-edge green design. Create a new park, or provide some open space. That's what public-private partnerships should be about. So put it all together. Combine this new shovel-ready development framework, these smart standards for community benefits, with everything New Rochelle already has. The best location, the best transit options, and when Penn Station access is completed, a direct connection to the east and west sides closer to Manhattan than any other stop. Put it together, and from every perspective, this is the most exciting development opportunity in the entire region, maybe one of the best in all of America. That's what we did together this past year. And this year, we're wasting no time putting the plan into action. Just a couple of months in, and RDRXR has already announced their first project, a 28-story tower that will make a bold statement at the western edge of the downtown, and I am especially happy to report will include a new public performance space that brings life and energy to a whole block of Main Street while aiming to preserve the historic facade of the old Lowe's Theater. And to introduce a little much-needed showmanship into this event, I want to invite my council colleagues up now. Come on up, everyone. And they will together unveil the rendering. So come on up. Don't knock over the other poster board. And by the way, let me say that it is appropriate that they be here with me, because even though I get to give this speech, everything I have spoken about is the product of a team effort for which we are all equally responsible. Please give a round of applause to these outstanding public servants. So go ahead. There you go, unveil it. How many council members does it take to screw in the light bulb? There you go. Step one. Vanna White, eat your heart out. Now, this project is exactly the kind of marriage of private investment and public interest that our downtown plan is purposefully designed to create. And it's not even on one of the city-owned sites for which RDRXR has an exclusive. That's still to come. What a great way to get started. And that's just the first example. Because as more people wake up to the extraordinary potential of New Rochelle and learn that we are open for business, interest in our city is growing by leaps and bounds. At this very moment, within our new downtown development zone, 2 other projects are already under construction. 2 more have been approved by the planning board, and multiple major projects, transformative projects, are under active discussion with our staff, ranging from hotels to conference centers to condos and rentals to restaurants and retailers. Not all will make it to the finish line, but then others will be coming on the track. And if even a few get done, the positive change will be dramatic. So if I sound excited, it's because I am. I don't have to fake it. And because I know what it took to get here. For so many years, it felt like New Rochelle's downtown was sort of this big jumbo jet. Had all the right parts to cruise at 30,000 feet, but just couldn't or wouldn't take off. Sometimes we were grounded by bad weather. Sometimes there were too many other planes stacked up ahead. Sometimes the flight crew couldn't agree on the runway, or the destination, or even the in-flight movie. So we just kept taxiing around the airport, getting more impatient. Well, now, finally, for all of us who have struggled and sweated in the cause of a better, greater downtown as good as this city deserves, the professional planners and citizen advocates, the neighborhood leaders and business owners, for everyone who invested time or faith or money, whether you're the pilot of the plane or the engineer, a passenger, or even a piece of luggage. I won't mention any names. Finally, for all of us, it is wheels up. New Rochelle is ready to fly. So what next? What next? Do we set the autopilot and recline back in our seats? Do we just say our prayers for a good economy to the Almighty or to Janet Yellen? Not necessarily in that order. and then wait for things to unfold as intended? That's one approach. And because of the hard work that brought us to this point, because this development framework is, in a sense, self-supporting, we might even do fine. But let me ask you this. If your business is finally getting noticed and pulling in more customers, do you pick that moment to cut back on your hours? If you're running for president and you win the primaries on Super Tuesday, do you leave for a long vacation on Wednesday? If your team just scored 3 touchdowns in a row, do you take your quarterback out of the game? If Steph Curry is on a hot streak, do you put him on the bench? He's a basketball player, right? My son Owen had to tell me about Steph Curry. Do you do those things? Hell no! When you've got momentum, you run with it. You press it home for all it's worth. If we want the best chance of success, then this is no time to sit back and relax. This is the time to seize hold of tomorrow. So here are 3 big things that can help us to make the most of this moment and help ensure that progress downtown occurs and lifts our city as a whole. That was a beautifully timed round of applause. Owen Bramson, thank you very much. First, tell our story. Tell our story. We may have the best economic development plan in the Hudson Valley. We may have a city with the best bones and the best potential, but none of that will do us any good if the right people don't know about it. Now, some level of knowledge just emerges naturally through the press or word of mouth or presentations to business and planning groups or by forcing people to attend this speech. Like I said, there's already good interest. But I don't want to leave any stone unturned. You never know which contact could lead to something special. That's why our development staff is working hard right now to create and then execute a systematic and comprehensive strategy for reaching out to the business and investment world with professional marketing materials that tell our story in a compelling way. We'll take our show on the road. We'll bring potential investors here. We'll have one-on-one talks, group presentations, bus tours, meet and greets. I'll bring a bullhorn to Times Square if that's what it takes. Or maybe Luis can do that. And we will do it with no time to waste, starting this spring. While we're at it, we'll also tell our story to a wider audience too. It's important because we all know image can be self-fulfilling. When it's positive, it can boost your ability to attract customers, your housing market, even your civic pride, everything. That's why last year we created our new brand, Ideally Yours. And now this year, we are rolling it out. Here's the no logo on my lapel. We got a bunch of them for you. I hope you picked them up at the entry desk when you had a chance. Soon you're going to see it on city entry signs and on T-shirts, on baseball caps and on shopping bags, in store windows and on street banners. I would tattoo it on my forehead if Katie would allow me, which she will not. And it's not just a logo. You'll hear and see why New Rochelle is ideally yours when you browse the web, when you listen to the radio, and when you watch TV. Maybe even when you take the train or subway. It'll be up there next to Poetry in Motion and Dr. Zismore. And to help us do it right, we'll be assisted by a team that shaped the imagery and message for top-flight clients like Nike, Banana Republic, and the NBA. And that's led by homegrown talent, New Rochelle's own Greg Valvano. You can see his spectacular work at some of these poster boards around the room. Greg, I don't know where you are. You're here somewhere. Stand up and take a bow. Where's Greg? Right there. And to make sure we have the biggest possible reach with a message that's repeated and amplified, we'll invite the key institutions of New Rochelle to join us. Our 3 great colleges, our invaluable hospital and elder care providers, our outstanding library, and our award-winning school district. We'll ask them not only to integrate our brand into their own communication, but also to pool our resources to augment an effective campaign. After all, we're in this together. Just as New Rochelle is, in large measure, defined by its opportunities to learn, its access to medicine, and its centers of employment, so too each of these vital institutions is lifted by the success of our community as a whole. It just makes sense for us to work side by side for the common good. And by the way, that same philosophy applies also to each of us as citizens. Telling our story well isn't just a governmental or institutional responsibility. We all have a role to play. Every time you introduce yourself as a resident of New Rochelle, every time you describe your hometown to a friend, whether you're commenting online through social media or chatting online at the supermarket, you shape how people look at our city. So talk us up. Be a goodwill ambassador. Express the confidence you want others to feel. Be honest, we could probably do better on this front. People who share a community can be a little like a family. And nobody knows your flaws better than your own family. Jeremy and Owen could describe my flaws in excruciating detail. Hopefully not right now. So sometimes we say things out loud in company that are better kept amongst ourselves. Look, I know New Rochelle has its share of real problems, like every other community, that should never be swept under the rug. And I think lots of folks in town feel like the best way to get a problem solved is to post it on Facebook or announce it at a public hearing. But this is a moment when our city really needs to put its best foot forward. So let's do ourselves a favor. If you've got an issue or a complaint, write me an email. Call your council member. Come by the city manager's office. We'll respond. Keep it in the family. You don't have to shout it from the rooftops. We can be our own worst enemies or our own best friends. With such a great opportunity hanging in the balance, let's each demonstrate the New Rochelle. Let's each be the New Rochelle we want others to see and know. And let's come together to tell our story proudly to all the world. Next. Although the downtown is rightly our top priority because its condition affects everything else, New Rochelle doesn't begin at Maple Avenue or end at River Street. 10 square miles is a lot of territory, and 80,000 is a lot of people. We have gracious homes representing every architectural era and fitting every lifestyle. We have neighborhoods of incredible cultural dynamism like the West End, which for a century has offered new Americans a gateway to a better life. We have multiple commercial centers, from Waikiki to Wayman to Wilmot, that each have their own distinct needs and challenges. And we have hundreds of acres of parkland in which to kick a ball, swing a bat, hike a trail, take a swim, or simply enjoy the peace of nature. You know, there's a good reason that Barry Fertel fights for Beachmont Lake and that Liz Freed advocates for the Wilmot Woods Pond. Assets like these are essential to the long-term value homeowners receive for their investment in New Rochelle, not to mention strong and growing property values. So if telling our story is the first big thing we can do to make the most of this moment, then the second big thing is this. Take the same determination that shaped our downtown vision and apply it now with equal vigor to the rest of our city. Big picture, that means finishing our comprehensive plan. A good comp plan can help us make smart decisions about what to preserve and what to change. It can bind individual land use choices and approvals into a coherent, community-supported whole so that we know where we're going and don't stumble into controversies on the way. Our current comp plan is 20 years old, long past its useful life. With tons of public participation, we've been working to update it for a long while now. No more waiting. Let's put in place a clear vision that extends from Davenport Neck to Lincoln Avenue to Scarsdale Park. And let's make a commitment to getting it done this year. Of course, nothing's more important to our neighborhoods and to our lives than the health of the environment. A few years ago, New Rochelle adopted its first sustainability plan, Greener. And we've already made big strides in meeting its goals, from electric cars and charging stations in partnership with Nissan to new community gardens at Lincoln Park. This year, we'll do even more. We'll introduce New Rochelle's first bike share program, making cycling easier than ever before and helping reduce emissions while we boost public health and have fun too. We'll replace all of our nearly 7,000 streetlights with new LEDs that cut electricity use by about 2/3 and cut the city's electricity bills by about $650,000 every year. And soon, we can applaud that savings. And soon, residents looking to cut their energy costs will get help from Energize New Rochelle, which offers free expert consulting, connections to contractors, financing tips, and much more for home weatherization and HVAC upgrades. Check it out at energizeny.org. And from Community Choice Aggregation, which will pool the buying power of all electricity consumers in several municipalities to give us lower prices and a better mix of clean, renewable energy sources. That starts in May. All these efforts and others reflect Greener's guiding principles. They're right for our environment, they're right for our wallets, they're right for our city, and they are right for our world. Finally, if there is one area that deserves special focus from every perspective, neighborhood, environmental, and economic, it's the waterfront. Now, it's fair to say that the city's waterfront efforts haven't always gone as intended. And I mean that in the same sense that the voyage of the Titanic did not go as intended. It's better to laugh than to cry. And we all get why. The choices are hard. Undoing the planning mistakes of the past is a bear. And sometimes getting to a big benefit tomorrow requires making a sacrifice today. We all want to get it right, but don't always agree on what right is. But that doesn't mean we should stop trying. When you stumble, you get back up. You learn from your mistakes. You do better the next time. That's what we teach our kids. And now that the hard, labor-intensive zoning and environmental work for the downtown is done, we have the bandwidth to turn our attention back to the shore. So let's set a few important but achievable waterfront goals for this year. First, let's complete the local waterfront revitalization plan. Like the comp plan, the LWRP sets big-picture standards for the whole shoreline. It puts us in a better position to apply for grants, and to offer just one important example, it would be an essential precursor to implementing the great recommendations of the David's Island Task Force. Second, and this is new, let's take a fresh look at the combined potential of the municipal marina, Hudson Park, Wildcliff, and Five Islands. Together, these invaluable public spaces offer sweeping access to the Sound, a relatively affordable opportunity for boating, and a wonderful venue for performances. And they will get better. Fresh off their success with Amy's Greenhouse at Barnard School, Millie Radonchik and her board of community volunteers have taken up the challenge of renovating the greenhouse at Hudson Park. Thank you, Millie, for your energy and drive. After the devastation of Hurricane Sandy, the Hudson Park sun deck was completely rebuilt. Hats off to Commissioner Bill Zimmerman for his supervision. And to our friends at FEMA for writing the check. And thanks to the New Rochelle Council on the Arts, the bandshell will soon be ready for a star turn. They secured an anonymous gift of $100,000 to pay for new sound equipment, lighting, and much more. Now, I don't know who that anonymous donor is, but I would like to invite him or her to exchange holiday gifts with the Bramson family this year. We can give you a sweater. You can pay off our mortgage. But still, even with these great efforts, those 4 public spaces aren't what they could be. Partly because of neglect, partly because of underutilization, mainly because we've never done a good enough job of putting all the sites together as a package with complementary uses that give more of us a reason to visit the shore. So this year, let's issue a request for proposals for all 4 sites in concert with an open invitation to submit creative ideas. Maybe it's fine dining at Wildcliff. Maybe it's a pedestrian bridge from Hudson Park to Five Islands. Maybe it's a great boardwalk and boutique hotel at the marina. Maybe it's all of those things or none of them. This much is for sure. New Rochelle has 4 waterfront gems side by side. And with the right partners, we can really make them shine. Finally, to wrap up this verbal tour of the waterfront, let's decide once and for all what to do with the city yard. Look, whether you like the last plan for Echo Bay or not, most of us can agree that the shoreline is not the ideal place for our garbage trucks. Most of us can agree that city yard's in awful condition and makes DPW's already hard job even harder. And most of us can agree that creating a direct connection from Main Street to the water would be a benefit for everybody in New Rochelle, especially the East End. That's the goal of our work with the capable team from Twining Properties. But it can't happen unless the city yard moves. It's no secret why this is tough. Moving the yard will cost a bucket of money. But I promise you this, it's still cheaper than doing nothing and keeping the yard where it is right now. Because in that scenario, taxpayers lose coming and going. Today, we'd have to spend a ton for direct repairs and construction. And then tomorrow, and forever, we'd have to kiss goodbye all the new revenue that could be created through the positive development of the site. Waiting doesn't make the choices any easier. It's not like holding off for December 26th for the post-Christmas markdown. There's no sale coming. The price only goes in one direction, and that's up. 100 years ago, when the waterfront was seen as an industrial access point, the decision to put the city yard on the shore was an understandable mistake. Today, in 2016, with all we know, doubling down on that decision would be an unforgivable mistake. So even if we don't finish the job right now, let's start. Let's determine finally and conclusively where the yard's going to go, and then begin the process of getting it there. And if we do that, we can open up the waterfront for all of us. So, if we do those two big things, if we tell our story well and if we extend our sights beyond the downtown, then New Rochelle will make huge progress. But I promised you three things to take advantage of this moment. So here's the last. Let's make a serious commitment to our infrastructure. To be the city we deserve, New Rochelle needs a strong physical foundation. A lot of that foundation is more than a century old and fallen apart. 161 miles of road, 192 miles of sanitary lines, 87 miles of storm drains, 40 public buildings, dozens of playgrounds, plazas, traffic signals, median islands. And if you can't keep track of those numbers, I'll give you something a lot easier to remember. Last year's potholes. Of all the categories of municipal spending, this is the one that is most severely and chronically underfunded. An estimated $200 million of need here in New Rochelle, covered by a roughly $5 million capital budget. Can't go on this way. As Lou Trangucci rightly reminds us from his personal experience, in the private sector, you never get away with skimping on your capital needs. Smart businesses budget strategically, and the public sector should be held to the same standard. The good news is that the City Council has already taken a big step forward. Last year, and again this year, the Council significantly upped our commitment to road paving, and we aim to continue. But as Lou will also tell you, maintaining what we've already got is only part of the job. Smart companies don't cling to outmoded technology or cede the future to the competition. They invest in R&D. They position themselves for what's next. Who wants to waste money laying down new asphalt on a road that might need a complete redesign? Or rebuilding a traditional stormwater pipe when permeable pavers or a rain garden might do a better job? Plus, there's more at stake than the basic safety and functionality of our infrastructure, although that comes first. It's also the look and feel of the public spaces where we gather. The look and feel that can shape the daily experience of residents and the first impressions of visitors. So here's more good news. The Council has directed our staff to prepare a complete streets plan for New Rochelle, to design a better road network, better for pedestrians and cyclists, better for safety, better for access, better for the environment, and helping to ensure that every precious capital dollar is used to build the future, not just patch up the past. And because reimagining our public spaces will be an ongoing challenge that should be a continuous focus of our work. We're bringing on retainers some great talent, the architects and planners at CDR, to help us visualize changes creatively and professionally, even if the money isn't there to execute certain improvements immediately. By visualizing and designing them now, we put ourselves in a stronger position to secure grants and to implement a serious multi-year capital plan. Let me give you some quick examples so you know what I mean. Our train station. Now, in the station itself, the new murals and information kiosk have really brightened things up. It's looking better. But when you cross the bridge over the tracks and exit the south side into our downtown, you are confronted with nothing. A bare, charmless street, the back of a building, nothing warm or human or inviting. We can do a lot better. That's why our Department of Development issued a call for proposals to reshape the South Gateway. And there on that poster board back there, you can see a preliminary image of what we are aiming for. It is a much better way to say, welcome to New Rochelle. Or take the North Avenue Bridge as another example, the one that spans I-95. During the next few years, the Thruway Authority is going to replace it. But we don't want a new version of the same old bad design. A design that chokes down traffic and squeezes pedestrians onto this measly strip between a rusty fence and a busy road. That's why we've been working with the Thruway Authority to widen the platform, with more space both on-road and off-road for every form of transportation, including our own two legs, and engineer to allow a future expansion with public plazas or parks over the highway. Even our digital infrastructure, that's going to be a great change. Even our digital infrastructure is important, which is why we're working with a group called Liquid to make New Rochelle the first gig city in Westchester, and that will be exciting. And here's one last minor little example. Two-way traffic on Huguenot and Main. I'll wait for the competing cheers and boos to settle down. For lots of us, this will take some getting used to. And I'll admit, for me, it did require some convincing. But the experts tell us that two-way traffic is far better for retail. The computer modeling tells us that the traffic will flow just fine. And common sense tells us it's easier to get to our destination when we don't have to circle around the block. And make no mistake, this is an infrastructure issue as much as a policy question, because you can't just take down the one-way signs and let drivers figure it out. You got to replace the signals, partially reshape the road, on and on. Also, we will be instituting capital punishment for people who double park. No, not really. Just life without parole. Fortunately, to help us work through complicated choices like these, the city can draw on decision makers who couldn't have a bigger stake in getting it right, and for whom this is more than an academic exercise. Every day, Ivar Hayden and Al Tarantino bring their real-world experience as downtown business owners to the council, and we're all better off because of it. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, I offer these specific examples to illustrate a point, that infrastructure is more than just paving roads. But don't focus too much on those specific examples, because a real commitment to infrastructure isn't about this project or that project. It's about a sustained and predictable policy that rebuilds New Rochelle over a period of years. Same way we target a minimum fund balance, the way we expect a minimum number of firefighters and police officers on a shift, same way we have a minimum number of sanitation routes, we should have minimum expectations for our capital investments. At our meeting just this past week, the whole City Council talked about exactly this kind of strategic approach, moving toward consensus on a better way forward. So with the Council's leadership and the administration's guidance, let's make sure the body of our city is as strong and as beautiful as its soul. So why is all this important? Why is all this important? Why is it worth the effort and time when we could just sit back and enjoy that airplane ride? Part of the answer is obvious. As taxpayers and homeowners, as workers and business owners and consumers, or just as residents who want to feel proud when we say, I live in New Rochelle, we'll be better off. But there's a bigger picture too. We sometimes think of ourselves as competing with White Plains or Yonkers or Stanford. Not right. New York as a whole is in competition with Shanghai and Vancouver, with London and with Boston. Our whole metro area is in competition for the jobs and the workforce of tomorrow. And if our region fails, the result is not going to be pretty. Higher costs, weaker tax base, aging workforce, declining investment. To come out ahead, the Regional Plan Association says we've got to welcome 3.7 million new people and create 1.9 million new jobs. 5 boroughs can't absorb that kind of growth by themselves. And the last thing we want to do is push it all to the far edge of the metro area where costs go up, commuting times are twice as long, and everything consumes more energy. So cities like New Rochelle are a vital part of the equation. We can only succeed as a region, and our region can only succeed with us. That's why everything I have mentioned tonight, from the downtown plan itself to the other steps that look past the downtown, everything adds up to a community where our children and grandchildren can live and want to live, can work and want to work, from being less dependent on the car to being more connected to the web, from the alternative energy powering our appliances to the cultural energy filling our galleries, walkability, diversity, affordability, parks that we want to visit, streets where we want to gather, shops where we want to browse, a shoreline where we want to stroll, neighborhoods where we want to grow old and grow up. That's what it takes to win the future. And to those who worry that the essential character of New Rochelle might somehow be lost, let me affirm that's also what it takes to preserve and carry into the future the qualities we know and love today. Ideally yours. That's our brand. But for a brand to ring true, it has to be about who you are, not just who you hope to be. So tonight, even though I've spoken about many things that ought to change, I want to close by celebrating the things that should never change at all. You want to know why New Rochelle is ideally yours? Look around the room at each other, at all the walks of life and strands of experience, all the traditions and cultures and perspectives that find here in our city common ground on a human scale. Why is New Rochelle ideally yours? Ask the organizers of My Brother's Keeper, with Councilman Jared Rice taking the initiative, and with invaluable leadership from Reggie Richardson, Kelly Johnson, Gustavo Barbosa, Devon Chambers, and Colleen Gardefee, plus a vital assist from Angela Taylor and so many others. Give them a big round of applause. They've brought together an unprecedented coalition of community organizations to make sure our young people, especially young men of color, can succeed before school, in school, and beyond school. They remind us that we have a stake in each other's lives and that equity matters just as much as prosperity in measuring a community's health. Ask the New Rochelle Arts Collective, led by David Krinick, Ben Kent, David Gonzalez, and Matt Demio. 2 of them are here. I don't know where you are, guys. Stand up. There they are. Filled with young talent. They came together a year ago, united by their creativity and loyalty to New Rochelle. Since then, they've engaged us with an inside-out living room at Ruby D. Park, surprised us with pop-up displays on Memorial Highway, and charmed us with that friendly dinosaur cuddling the K building that I think they put that up again. There we go. How can you not love that? And that's just for starters. There is nothing in Williamsburg that the Arts Collective cannot bring to New Rochelle except maybe the sky-high rents. Or ask Muhammadu, Umar, and Muhammad of Icon, the Islamic Center of New Rochelle. When they founded their mosque on North Avenue, just across from City Hall, They want it to be in a place where everybody is recognized as a full stakeholder, where every faith has a home, every tradition is embraced with pride, and where we know what makes America great is not blood or soil or walls. What makes America great is brotherhood from sea to shining sea. They found that place in New Rochelle, and we are better because of it. Gentlemen, where are you? Stand up. Thank you. Why is New Rochelle ideally yours? Ask Sergeant Calvin McGee. He's been with the NRPD for just about 33 years. Now, where's Calvin? Where's Calvin? There he is. Stand up, Calvin. Don't be shy. 33 years. Now, must have started when he was about 6 years old. For the last decade, Calvin's been directly responsible for training every officer. And I don't mean just how to hold a gun. I mean how to engage a community. Coordinating the Youth Police Initiative, overseeing the Citizens Police Academy, Calvin has strengthened the bonds between residents and law enforcement over and over again, and has helped New Rochelle be a positive example for the entire country at an important moment. Thank you, Calvin, for all that you do. Ask firefighters. Firefighters Anthony Margiotta, Dan Thompson, and Jared McLean. Where are you guys? Stand up. There they are. Now, I love this story. One night this past September, they answered an EMS call at the Drake Firehouse and arrived to find a woman in the late stages of labor. Her water had broken. Her contractions were just 5 minutes apart. But New Rochelle's bravest didn't miss a beat. They administered oxygen, coached the mom through, and 15 minutes later, they were the first to welcome our city's newest baby girl. They even cut and tied the cord. Ladies and gentlemen, that is service. The diaper change, however, is not included. Or ask police officers William Odell, Evangelos Giralis, Dwayne Jones, Chris Hurl, Claudio Carpano, Sean Kane, Yadali Machado, Michael Vaccaro, and Chris Guglielmo. I mean, man, just their names say a lot. Now, where are they? Stand up, everyone. Stand up. Now, I mean, you don't even know what they did and you're applauding. That's a good sign. I mentioned New Rochelle's low crime rate early on. But there are still some bad guys out there. And it takes guts and quick thinking to confront them. Just about a month ago, the PD received a report of an armed robbery. Long story short, pursuing by car and on foot, putting themselves at risk, our team rounded up suspects that turned out to have a violent criminal history throughout New York and Westchester, not to mention grand larceny in the criminal hotbed of Greenwich, Connecticut. You've got to watch out for Greenwich. Our whole region is safer thanks to their good work. Most of those officers are here tonight, and you met them a moment ago. One who is not is Dennis Kiernan, who sustained an injury while preventing the suspects from approaching our high school. With that kind of heroism, even his father, the former fire commissioner, might have to forgive his son for the cardinal sin of choosing a blue uniform. I hope you'll give Dennis our best, and we wish him a quick recovery from his injury. Give him all a round of applause. I'm not done. Almost, but not quite. You want to know why New Rochelle is ideally yours? Ask Elisa Keston. As the executive director of Volunteer New York, she oversees an organization that mobilized nearly 250,000 hours of volunteer service to assist 500 not-for-profits at a value of more than $7.2 million, enriching the lives both of those who deliver services and of those who receive them. Elisa is a leader for our whole region, but New Rochelle is her home. And in fact, this year, we're launching a new local partnership with Volunteer New York, focused specifically on our own city to enlist the time and talent of more residents in meeting needs right here. Lisa's under the weather tonight and couldn't join us, but let's applaud loud enough for her to hear us all the way up on Lincroft Road. Thank you, Lisa. Ask Charles Fazzino. maybe the best-known pop artist in the world, whose instantly recognizable 3D works officially commemorate such minor events as the Super Bowl and the Grammys, and such obscure locations as the Statue of Liberty, the Grand Canal of Venice, and the Hollywood Hills. You could see a Fazzino at hundreds of galleries around the globe, but there's only one place where you can see them made, and that's New Rochelle, New York. Someone of Charles's stature might be forgiven for ignoring local civic matters, but that's not who he is. He's a mainstay of the annual Arts Fest, contributed enormously to our 325th celebration, donated a sculpture that greets visitors to City Hall, mobilized support for mental health care, and so much more. Now we're working with Charles to integrate his signature style into our evolving downtown streetscape. New Rochelle is already Charles Fazzino's place of business. Soon it will be his canvas too. Give him a round of applause. Thank you, Charles. Finally, and this is a personal pleasure for me, ask Phil DeRaffaele. Phil leads the last of America's great diner manufacturing companies, a dominant presence along the eastern seaboard, where Phil has constructed about 1,000 restaurants and done as much as anyone to shape the landscape of our country. If you've eaten in a diner this side of the Mississippi, you've probably experienced Phil's handiwork. His immigrant father started the business, but Phil made it what it is today. And he did it with smarts, skill, and vision that are exceeded only by his incredible modesty and generosity. Phil's home is here in New Rochelle. His office is here in New Rochelle. And at the corner of Wayman and Main, thanks to Phil, there's a new diner here in New Rochelle. And we are grateful to you, Phil, for making it happen. By the way, you might also ask Phil his age, and then when you find out, you'll want to know his secret, which is two Manhattans, I should say, each at lunch and dinner, which is a practice I'd very much like to emulate. So let me tell you, I had a heck of a time drilling down to just these examples of people who inspire us in their own ways to be the best in the public square and to feel pride in what New Rochelle represents. Because our city is filled with such examples. They are New Rochelle. We are New Rochelle. People who define our spirit of inclusion and optimism, of accomplishment and creativity, who show what it means to find your ideal and what it means to be your ideal. So it's wheels up. And as our city takes flight, lifted by the hard work already done, aiming higher, through the hard work still to do, may we never forget why the journey matters and why we are so privileged to take it together. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and God bless New Rochelle. Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.